AEGIS project. Odd Erik wanted to come, but he set the right priority. One of his children got ill, so he decided to not leave home and present online. You see him up here? Coming? Should.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Achso, ja, wir sind gerade
Yes,
vorne
yes,
gewesen,
yes.
weil man es nicht klingeln gehört. Jo. No? Jo.
I was muted. Now I can hear myself. Is that something you can... Yeah, now it's better, I think. Should I share my screen here instead? Otherwise, I cannot control the presentation, I guess. Yes, great. Then I will... there we are. You can hear me, that's also very good. Meaning that I can probably get started. So thank you, Nick, for having me, and thank you all for listening in. And of course, I will have answers to all your challenges in this project, Nick, so no worries. My name is Odd Erik Mørkrid. I'm from SINTEF Ocean, Norway, and I'm the coordinator of the AEGIS project, which is all about new waterborne logistics. First, I just want to say a few words on the background for the project. And so starting with a brief history of the shipping, if we take a step back in time, the crew on the ships were huge. Like in 1860, you would have crews of 250 people, but the trend has been very clear the last 150 years. And if you look at 2013, you can see the really large container ships, but still with a very limited crew. At the same time, we have seen that ships have grown more or less exponentially in the same time. The last, I'm sorry, these ships are a bit small and hard to read, but in the very bottom, there's this huge deep sea container ships with a capacity of more than 20,000 TEUs, which obviously is a challenge both from a resilience perspective, but also from other perspectives. Did you lose my presentation now? Or are you still seeing my presentation? Because in my screen, I see the Moses project. Okay, so it's still okay. Good. Then I will continue. So what we are looking into in the AEGIS project is to reduce the sizes of the vessels and introduce autonomy, and in that way make it cost efficient anyways. Another thing is what I call the logistical challenge, because we are told to move water from road to water, move goods from road to water. And how do you do that when you're competing with this? The trucks can easily go from A to C. If you replace trucks with ships, you can only go from one terminal to another, where you still will need trucks in both ends in the end. And you will have to do investments on the terminal sides on both sides here. So this is how can we do this? How can this be both sustainable and cost efficient?
Exact. Dat lijkt mij interessante info. Ik zal dat een keer doormailen. Tenzij dat je dat al hebt, dan moet je dat niet meer doen in het vervolg.
There's someone speaking. Yeah. So that is really what we're addressing in the AEGIS project. AEGIS stands for Advanced, Efficient and Green Intermodal Systems. So quickly about the project, we are 12 partners from Norway, Finland, Denmark and Germany. You can see the logos here. I will come back to some of them during the presentation. We are part of the Horizon 2020 call, Moving Freight by Water, Sustainable Infrastructure, Innovative Vessels. We have a 7.5 million euro budget. We started June 3 years ago, and the official ending is May this year. This is our homepage. The presentations will be shared later on, so I won't spend much more time on this. Then going into what the AEGIS really is, and to sum it up, I mean it is the next generation sustainable waterborne transport system, meaning more diverse sizes of ships. So we are developing new vessel concepts with different sizes for the different purposes. Looking into mother-daughter solutions, meaning that you have a bigger ship doing the major part of the route, and then you have feeder vessels called daughters that do the feeding in the region, like Norwegian fjords or smaller inland waterways. More flexible ship systems, both in terms of cargo handling, but also in terms of manning and equipment in general. More automation in cargo handling. I will come more into this. And to enable automation and autonomy, you need standardized cargo units like standardized containers and trailers. And to make all this equipment and processes, stakeholders to talk together, we also need new digital technologies. So on the next slide, I just want to show you a structure of the project and the work packages and how we work. So first we have 3 use cases with 3 red dots here. One use case on the mother-daughter concept in the fjord of Trondheim in Norway, where we are addressing short sea shipping, going from Rotterdam to the Norwegian coastline. One use case in Netherlands, Belgium with the Ro-Ro concept, which I will be spending most of the presentation on. And then lastly, also use case on terminal development in terms of automation in Denmark, the port of Aalborg and port of Vordingborg. The first kind of technical work packages addressing logistics system redesign and resilience. We see that we need to redesign the way we are thinking in the waterborne to make this work. And this work is feeding into the 3 other technical work packages on autonomous cargo handling. And we see that we need to introduce autonomy as a means to lower the cost and increase the efficiency of small and medium ports. As I said, we're developing green advanced vessels with green propulsion systems and new cargo handling equipment. And digital connectivity and also cybersecurity are important building blocks in the whole transport system. Policy support is, of course, important both to identify bottlenecks and obstacles, but also the opportunities that lies within policies. And lastly, we do a cost-benefit analysis of the concepts we are proposing, both with respect to society, environment, and economy. Okay, so I will talk about the inland waterways part now, and I want to talk about Ro-Ro versus Lo-Lo, roll-on, roll-off versus load-on, load-off, and I will try to argue why Ro-Ro might have a future, even though I know some people Anton, I'm talking to you. Don't think that RoRo is really a good idea, but we believe in AEGIS that it is, and I will try here to show you why. So if you look at how a container cargo operation is done, and if you split this operation into 3 areas, the vessel area, the port area, and the hinterland area, you can see in this figure that the port area is a quite huge part of it, and you need container cranes, you need reach stackers, you need areas for stacking the containers, so you need a lot of both space, equipment, and investments. But if you compare this to the RoRo concept, you can see that the port area is limited to almost nothing, because in theory you can then just drive the trailer off the ship directly onto the truck and off you go. So if you further look into this, how we can enable the shift from road to the RoRo operations, I want to talk about smart and autonomous solutions. In this figure, you see the conventional way today with the short sea RoRo ship coming into the short sea port, unloading the trailers onto the trucks. The trucks enters the manual gate and then onto congested roads, as we say here, because the roads surrounding the bigger ports in Europe are really congested, and that's something which is we can address by introducing the advanced and smart way of doing this transport instead. So if we still have the short sea RoRo ship coming in, but now we replace the longest part of the transport in Europe with the waterborne and autonomous solutions and digital smart solutions in the ports. You can see that if we bring in autonomous vehicles like tugmasters, bringing the trailers off the ship onto the quayside and further onto autonomous barge, which can also be remotely controlled, RCC, Remote Control Center. TOS in this picture means Terminal Operating System. So you have a software system running on the top here that makes all this equipment talk together. The autonomous barge will then sail to a smaller inland port where you also have a terminal operating system that speaks the same language. You might have the same kind of tugmaster that brings the trailers off the barge and then connect it to a truck through a smart gate in an autonomous way, and off you go with the truck on a very limited part of the last mile transport. So with that as a backbone, I want to go into the use case we have in AEGIS on the concept. And we are looking into, and DFDS is the case lead here, looking into bringing cargo from Rotterdam to Antwerp to Ghent, and eventually also further down the route into the SEMT Class 2, and eventually maybe all the way down to Paris. And how do we do that? We introduce new vessel concepts. That's one thing, and that's what I will focus on now. So we have designed actually 3 different barges for different SEMT classes, and these are 2 of them, and I will go into details in the next slides. The upper right one is a SEMT Class 6, and the bottom right is a SEMT Class 4. 2 different concepts for loading and offloading in this case. So if I go into the SEMT Class 6 barge, we have proposed an innovative cargo handling concept with double-decker solutions where the trailers are stacked in a transversal direction, which makes it very suitable for milk routes and for visiting several ports on the route to avoid reshuffling of trailers on board when trying to unload and discharge trailers. There are 3 gantry cranes and with some lift inside that you utilize to, and with autonomous tugmasters as well, you can take the trailers on and off. The concept is, of course, green. We have battery propulsion with the 3 battery trailers in the back of the barge. And it is supposed to be fully autonomous, meaning unmanned, but with support and maybe also in the beginning control from the remote control center. This is a rather huge barge with 139 meters and a breadth of 15 meters. But the next one that is made for SEMT+4 is a more traditional way of placing the trailers. And it's smaller, it's 84.5 meters, and it has a breadth of 9.5 meters. And where the capacity of the previous one was 69 trailers, this one has a capacity of 21 trailers. It also has the battery containers here in the bottom of the aft part of the barge. You have ramps in both the bow and stern. And it's also a double-decker solution. And it brings its own tugmaster on board. So it means it can basically visit any terminal along the route, as long as the terminal is ready to take on autonomous tugmasters, of course. I want also to say some words about terminals. So I go in to say a few words about use case C, which is addressing Port of Aalborg and Port of Vordingborg in Denmark, considered small and medium ports. The red dots show where they are located in Denmark, Aalborg in the north, Vordingborg in the south, not very far from Copenhagen. Cargotech, as one of our partners, has developed a simulator tool for simulating a new automated terminal layout, and this is a picture from there. On the left side, there are smart gates for the trucks, where the truck driver will enter into this what they call a kiosk, and the driver will get out of that area, which is fenced, and then the autonomous operations can start. In the terminal area, there is also reach stackers that can be remotely controlled or being autonomous. This is a conventional reach stacker, which also has been tested with remote control successfully. But the future will look more like this, where when you bring the driver out of the vehicle, you can also remove the driver's cabin or the operator cabin, and you have more design freedom. So you can have innovative solutions like this. And this one can actually also drive sideways. Then use case A, I just want to say a few words about this one as well, because it ties it all together. So the mothership, which is shown here, which is one of our designs, 1100 TEU ship with 2 triple joint cranes from MacGregor. I will show a picture of that one a bit later. Goes from Rotterdam to the Norwegian coastline. And then if you zoom into the Trondheim area where I'm currently, this map shows the fjord. All the blue dots are smaller ports in that region. And the 2 ships on the right side are the daughter ships that we have developed. They are fully autonomous. They have battery propulsion with battery containers and a gantry crane. And these have a capacity of 100 TEUs. We have also developed a concept with 60 TEUs and looking into how the 2 different sizes will affect the logistics. This is the crane that is typical today on the container ships from MacGregor with operator cabin in the top there. In the project, we will demonstrate this fall autonomous operation with such a crane. But going forward, the cranes will start looking maybe more like this. This is the triple joint crane that MacGregor is looking into, and that will be further developed in the Seamless project, which I believe you will hear from later on today. A challenge with mother-daughter solutions is how to design the logistics. And you can have one or more mother vessels, you can have one or more daughter vessels, and how do you optimize it in a way. So as part of the project, we have developed a logistics analysis tool to look into this, and I have included one slide with an example how we can address also the energy consumption and emissions with ships versus trucks. So in SINTEF we also have a tool for simulating trucks, and this figure shows a route from Skogn in the part of Trondheimfjorden and out to the transshipment hub along the coast. It's a 173 kilometer road. It takes 2 hours 26 minutes to drive it, and you have emissions obviously. Then for the waterborne part of the same route, it's 81 nautical miles, about the same distance, but you can take 60 or 100 TEUs in one go, and you have no emissions if you consider tank to wheel, even with the well to wheel or the well to wake. I mean, you might have limited emissions in Norway. Also, as I mentioned, as part of the project, we are looking into policy support, and 3 deliverables are coming up. One on public policy recommendations, one on legal and regulatory challenges, and one on policy implementation measures for a new European waterborne transport system. And what we've seen through this work is that it's really challenging to address these things for when you do a logistics redesign, because you have to look at everything from ship design to fuel types, propulsion systems, to sustainability, terminal operations, digitalization, and externalities. But I need to start concluding, and some major conclusions I want to present is that ships have grown too big and are today too dependent on large ports. The dependency on the mentioned large ports have caused severe delays in the logistics worldwide. The demand for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions is an opener for maritime transport, but ships must be built lighter, smaller, and more flexible with zero emission energy. We have proposed 2 maritime transport systems in AEGIS, LOLO for the Norwegian case and RoRo for the inland case. Preliminary calculations show that the ships can compete on price and have significantly lower greenhouse gas emissions than the trucks, at least if you also bring in external costs as a part of the picture. Then quickly about NAIADES mapping. I know I'm spending maybe a bit too much time now, but I think that for the NAIADES 3 flagships, we are addressing at least these 3, and then number 2, 5, and 6. And if we revisit this figure here from the beginning of the presentation and put these flagships in here, I think the number 2 is connected to our work with policy support, number 5 with our work with the autonomous cargo handling and development of small and medium ports, and number 6 on digital connectivity and cybersecurity work that we are doing. So finally, the impact map, shifting freight to water. We are introducing new vessel concepts and feeder vessel concepts, autonomous terminal operation, which enables efficient transshipment. We do a logistics redesign and simulations of the logistics. For more attractive jobs, we believe remote control centers will make it more convenient for people that you can sit in an operation center instead of being on board and away from your family. Automated cargo handling will reduce the risks for humans, that you can step aside and not be physically exposed to these operations. Pathway to zero emission fleet. We have the containerized battery propulsion systems, and crewed feeder vessels can be built more cost efficient because you don't have to think about the wheelhouse and hotel and all these things, and you can then design the ship in a more efficient way. Automated and electric terminal vehicles and automated mooring are all things that will eventually cut emissions also on the terminal side. Lastly, smart waterways. We are not directly strong impacting there, but we are addressing cybersecurity and developing methodology for that, and we are also standardizing ship-shore communication, which I believe comes under this one. And the policy recommendations that we are working on would also come under smart waterways, I believe. And thank you for your attention, and maybe a bit too long, Nick, but anyways.
I think it was perfectly on time, so well done.
Thank you, great.
Most important question first, how are the kids doing? Under control?
She's under control. She's fine, but she has to stay at home.
Okay. Any questions here? I'm sure Anton has like a million questions. Maybe Patrick, I invited you for a reason, of course. As far as I know you, automated sailing is, autonomous sailing is close to your heart. So, how many micros do you need? I guess since you're wearing a tie, the questions will be very difficult.
Yes.
Okay.
I saw in all the use cases some of the equipment of project participants. In what way are the results of the project been influenced by commercial motives of project partners?
That's an interesting question. I guess it will always be somewhat influenced, but we also believe that the systems we are developing, the concepts we are developing, fit into that the commercial ideas they have. And if you look at the triple joint crane, that is actually nothing that is commercial yet, but it's something that we see both from our side and from the commercial side that it is probably a good future for it. And the autonomy, which means that you can remove operator's cabin and these things, introduces new design possibilities.
Anybody else?
Good morning. I'm Paola Chiarini from DG Move, so European Commission. I'm not very clear whether what you presented is just concepts, because at points you talked about concepts and then you said we will demonstrate this activity. What would be interesting for me is to understand also whether you see a path to take this to the market, because I think this is important, and what that would be the timeline. So how do you see the development of these concepts? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. We are actually at the moment working on a roadmap for these things in the project. So that one will be published this spring. But partners like North Sea Container Lines, which is the lead of use case A, have already actually ordered 2 ships that are very similar based on our mother vessel design. And I also know they are looking into the idea of daughter ships in the fjords, because they see that it's not very efficient for these huge ships to go into the fjords, and there are also enough cargo flow in the area to enable this. As goes for DFDS, they are also involved in several other projects on the same, and they strongly believe in these concepts. And if you look at where ASKO is in Norway on the Ro-Ro barges in the Oslo fjord, I think this is quite feasible in near future. At least if you go the way via remote control first, then I believe you can see also what CFAR is doing with remote control with a very limited crew.
Anybody else? Good. So I have one. What I see is what you present is very ambitious, maybe even more ambitious in the business models, rather than compared to, let's say, sailing autonomously. If I followed you correctly, you don't, what you have been presenting on RoRo and LoLo does not only affect, let's say, the business models of the barging companies, but also of the trucking companies. Those who do the last and the first mile, or the first and the last mile, they need to also completely change their attitude, way of doing things, and it has an impact on their cost benefit, I would say. Did you discuss with trucking companies, big logistic service providers, how do you see it? For example, those, but maybe it's a bit out of your geography, those trucking or doing a lot of transport towards the UK and back. Did you screen the market there?
We are so fortunate to have DFDS as a key partner in the project, which is also having a lot of trucks, right? I guess most of their fleet are trucks, basically. And we have also discussed this, indeed, because there will be changes, obviously. But I think we need to go down that route, and I think also we can change the business models a little bit for the trucking companies. For example, we've been discussing whether if you could make the trailers independent from the trucks, and then the trucks could do smaller distances, which in the end will also enable electric trucks in a better way. That goes for the RoRo concepts, at least. For LoLo, it's a different discussion, because that really changes it, of course. But it's also a very good question. Yes.
Any questions from the online people? Okay. Off to the next one. Thanks, Odd Erik. Hope to see you soon alive and kicking here in Brussels or elsewhere.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And to continue the discussion.
Yeah, that would be a pleasure. Thank you, Nick.
My pleasure, our pleasure.